embracing change is our spiritual evolution. So today's talk is called Putting Spirit Back in Spirituality. Putting the Spirit back in spirituality. But the context for this whole thing is change. And what I mean by that is we have a body, we have a mind, and we have a spirit. And some people like to say, well, there's the Son, the Father, and the Holy Spirit. So there's different ways this Trinity has always been talked about. But the emphasis for spirituality is spirit. So how do we keep in the foreground spirit as we go through our day-to-day chores, our day-to-day work, what we have to do? So what I've seen and noticed is how so many of us are trying to appease and soothe the body, the beast. You got to bathe it, you got to relax it, you got to sleep it, you got to feed it. You've got all these things you have to do to maintain the beast, the body, the animal part of ourselves. Part of that animal part of ourselves is the brain. And the brain is this elaborate central nervous system that is an interface with our physical realm, our physical world. Meditation is the tool where we start training the brain to quiet itself. And we do two specific tasks to train the brain that allow us to then manage the body and the beast. So the first part is stillness. And the way I've come to think about stillness is intermittent fasting for your brain. It's giving yourself a break from so much thinking and activity that you're just fasting yourself from thinking. But then once you get the nourishment you need, once you get the proper cleansing of the brain and its thinking processes, then we need to start to develop its ability to think about what we want to think about when we want to think about it. And that's called concentration. So in our meditation process, we concentrate for 5 minutes. We hold a single image to the exclusion of all others that builds the strength so that our brain does what we want it to do rather than what it wants to do. Because remember, that sucker is like a 2-year-old little child. If you tell it to do something, usually it'll say no or why if it's not properly trained. Then we have stillness, and stillness is that intermittent fasting where we allow our brain to recover, to quiet. The best image I've had of this, it's like having a jar of water that has a little bit of mud in it, and our normal brain is all shaken up and the mud's there. And as we start to meditate, it allows the mud to flow to the bottom of the container, and then the water becomes more and more clear. Our ability to see things becomes more and more clear. So the illustration I want you to really think about with your mind and the brain is a still body of water, a pond. No wind, no ripples, no thoughts, nothing but a still body of water, a reflecting pond, if you will, that perfectly reflects everything around it on its surface. So that's your mind. So your mind is that part of you that can be reflective, it can be interactive, it can control things, but it can also be very still. Now, if you have a pond that is perfectly still, you can notice under the surface what lies below it, especially if the water is clear and the murkiness has settled to the bottom. What you see below the surface of your mind is your spirit. So you have a body of water. Above it is the three-dimensional world. Below it is the spiritual world. Allowing yourself to quiet your mind is keeping the ripples where it properly reflects what's from the outside world and also has viewable the spirit world. So as we start to bring spirit back into spirituality, it's through the control and management of our mind till you get to a perfectly still place where you completely have no thoughts. If you come up just slightly from there, you can see things as they accurately are in the physical world, but you can also start to begin the process of seeing things that are reflected from the spiritual world as well. Remember, the spirit world is energy. The physical world is the effect of energy on other physical objects. So here's a couple of things I want you to think about. The uncontrolled mind creates a veil of delusion, a veil of delusion. You see something and you interpret what that is you see without necessarily it being based in reality. If we were to, each one of us, write down from our memory the message from Nathan earlier, we would all have a slightly different variation of what that was. Then we could test it by looking back on the video to see how close we were to what was said versus what we perceived was said. So virtually every argument I've ever been involved in my life, you've got two people arguing about the same thing, different perspectives. As we start to become more quiet and have less opinion, less thoughts affecting our perception, we see things as more as they really are. Now, how does this work in our life? What does it matter? I'm assuming that you all have something you would like to accomplish this next week, something you'd like to bring about, whether it's cleaning the room or planting the bulbs or working out the new jigsaw or whatever it is. You have your idea about what you want. Then you have the reality of what it's going to be. The difference is the actions that bring it about. So as we go through life, we are continually reconciling what's happened with what we think will happen. So you have a thought or idea about what can happen. Then you have what really happened. Many times we create a story in the middle, trying to reconcile what we thought was going to happen with what really did happen, and this story becomes like our BS, our basic story for our life. But here's the part I want you to understand about really accessing spirit on a day-to-day basis, moment by moment. Some people call this mindfulness. Mindfulness, where you are walking so quietly through life that you can see things in the real world as they are with no filtration, no delusion, no veils of belief, with the reality of what's going on. That mindful place is void of fear. Void of fear. Because too many people are afraid of what someone else will say, or it won't work, or being disappointed, or we all have our own version of what that fear looks like, and that fear holds us back, because that fear ends up creating ripples on the top of the surface of our mind, and those ripples block us from seeing things as they really are. Here's the beauty about having spirit accessible all the time, putting spirit back into a spiritual path, is it feels as though life is a sanctuary. Life is this quiet inner sanctum where you can feel calm, at peace. You can experience love and harmony, moment by moment by moment. It's those times when you meet another person and your minds touch for a moment. You're connected with a sunset or a flower or something in the realm of the physical world where you feel one and connected with it. So that's adding spirit back into spirituality. But here's the part I want you to kind of consider and embrace, because I don't know about you, but the world has been somewhat chaotic the last 30 or 40 years. It seems that it's becoming more and more chaotic. 30, 40 years ago, we didn't have a phone that connected us around the world all the time. We didn't have constant beeps. We didn't even have answering machines, for goodness sake. And now answering machines are obsolete. You go to voicemail on your phone. But allowing yourself to control your mind through meditation and concentration to get that calm surface allows you to create in your immediate vicinity the experience of being the eye of the storm. the eye of the storm, that regardless how complicated, complex, chaotic the world is around you, you have this inner peace, this inner place of safety, this inner place of quietude, this inner place of knowing, where you can see what's going on around you reflected at the surface of your mind, but what's also going on within you with your spirit. And in that place, in this place of this eye of the storm, you can always see what the best next step will be. More importantly, you can take that step. And if you're willing to give up drama, and that's the biggest one I've seen for people, is they're not willing to give up the drama. You can always know where that next step will take you. And you can walk your path in harmony. And that's the promise of a spiritual life, is walking your path as the eye of the storm in perfect harmony, always knowing what your next step should be and where it will take you. More importantly, as you take each step, you create a more and more thriving experience of being alive, more satisfaction, more fulfillment, because you're more present in this moment, this moment, this moment, connected with all there is, and that all there is within. It could be fun taking a shot at that. Try it and let me know. My highest blessings.